Hey everyone, today we're going to talk flash, we're going to talk continuous lights, we'll talk strobes and speedlights. I'm going to give you everything I know about lighting and hopefully equip you a little bit better for your next photo shoot. Let's get into it. One of the questions I get asked often is whether or not I should be getting a flash or should be getting some continuous LED lights for your photography. Obviously, if you're doing video, the choice is obviously a no-brainer. Just get yourself some nice LEDs, they'll do the trick. But when it comes to photography, when it comes to stills, the question is a little bit more what it is that you shoot. It's very dependent on how you shoot and what you shoot. So long story short, I think if you're going a stills route, you definitely want to go with flashes over continuous, and we'll go over a few of the pros and cons of each throughout this video. But I've gone the flash route, so I might be a little bit biased that way. Learning both has equipped me with more knowledge, and I think if you have the ability to do both, go for it. But if you're looking at this with, all right, this is my first lighting setup, what should I go for? What are my options? What's the difference? It's all the same to me. It's just a flash, like who cares? Or it's just light, like what's the difference? So breaking it down as simply as possible, if you're shooting stills, flashes will give you a lot more power and they will give you a lot more flexibility in the type of shooting that you can do and the type of environments in which you can shoot in. But they will require a lot more mental math, so to speak, than your continuous LEDs. The continuous LEDs will shine because they are what you see is what you get. It's very easy to instantly set up. It's kind of like having a live view on your camera, but with your flashes at all times. One of the major caveats of having that light on all the time is that it's annoying. If you have models or if you have food like I like to shoot, that ice cream is going to melt under those hot lights and your model is going to be squinting when the sun is pointing in her face all day. If you're shooting at 2.8 and you want a little bit of extra fill light and you just want to fill in those shadows a little bit and you have, that's fine. But the way that I like to shoot, the way that flash allows you to shoot is to crush the ambient light. And you can't do that with today's modern LEDs. LEDs just aren't strong enough to let you shoot something like f11, f16, and you might be thinking, why the hell would I ever shoot at f11? Well, if you're shooting in products, if you're shooting advertising, you'll be shooting at these much deeper depth of field, and you need more light output for that to happen. That goes back to how bright do you want that light to be in your model's face. Even if you're shooting at 5.6, if you've got something like a reflector and it's beaming in your model's face, like that's annoying. It's a pretty bright light. So to have yourself the ability to only have a pop of light when you need it is going to be a lot more beneficial than if you have to have the lights on all the time. Your power draw either from your batteries draining really quickly because the light is on all day, or the accessibility to it being close to a wall. Many modern strobes now are battery powered, so that's another option that you don't need to be close to an outlet. You can be outside, you can be in the middle of anywhere. You don't need a generator with you. I know there's always like LED options. You can have a power bank and you can strap that to the wall to your C-stand and you get all day battery life. I know there's always workarounds, but for the most part, you're going to be using less battery with your strobes than you are with an LED, especially if you're comparing comparable light outputs. I think another very important thing as well is considering the modifiers that you can use with the flashes. If you think of Profoto, Broncolor, Elinchrom, or Godox, they have or Bowens, I guess, they have a very specific mount, but they have hundreds of different modifiers that work with all of these. And sure, you could probably get an umbrella mount that works with anything, but you kind of have this specific type of mount that gives you this access to so many different modifiers to shape the light the way you want it, depending again on the type of shooting that you do. If you are a wedding shooter and you're running and gunning and you're in different environments, and some days you're outside, sometimes you're in the living room, sometimes you're in a dark basement, sometimes you got LEDs in the background. If you only have a little LED panel that has like a very limited amount of brightness and a very limited amount of flexibility in how it can be modified or how it can be used or shaped, then you're limiting yourself in the ability to provide images for your clients. If you're shooting events a lot, if you're working in environments that change from day to day, if you're not in a studio for this, for the most part, you're probably going to want strobes. You're probably going to want at least a flash system. And I guess I should get into speedlight versus strobe in just in a sec, but you're definitely going to want something that gives you the ability to be really, really powerful and really not powerful, and the ability to modify, and the ability to walk with you in a field. Or LEDs have constraints in many of those different areas. You might be able to have workarounds for a few of those problems, but flashes and strobes, like, that's what they were built for. That's what they were made for. That's what they had in mind when they were designed to begin with. So I think you'll be better off if you just go that route to begin with, no matter how daunting it sounds if you're just starting out. So back with speedlight versus strobes, I wanted to mention this. So one of the things that I guess I didn't really understand too well, the difference between a flash and a strobe starting out. Actually, I should probably just get the light as well. All right, so I got these here. I guess if we got these guys over here, I know this is not technically a speedlight, but it's pretty much the same thing. It's got the same type of head in the front. So this here, which is something you might be more familiar with, or kind of what you're expecting, shoots in that direction. And you have different flashes that allow you to zoom that beam a little bit, but for the most part, it's a very directional beam that goes in a certain direction, straight. Strobes, on the other hand, have this tube that goes around, this flash tube over here, and that means that the light comes out this way. So even though the flash is pointing at you, and yeah, there's going to be some light that goes this way as well, but for the most part, it goes out this way. One of the reasons that makes a difference is if you've got a modifier like this, or something, even any modifier really, even an umbrella will show a big difference in the way that the light is output between a speedlight and a strobe. And if you think about it this way, this is kind of like almost like having a beauty dish, because a beauty dish basically is a cover in the middle, and it allows the light to hit it and then bounce back inside and hit the outsides of this reflector and go towards you, right? So once again, the light hits the little reflector in the middle, bounces back into the sides, and comes out this way towards your model or whatever. With a strobe, because the light comes out this way right away, instead of going forward, you're basically creating like a beauty dish effect inside of a reflector, because the light, instead of going straight out and creating a hot spot in the middle that feathers out, you're creating a much more even glow, because it's coming at, like, the light is hitting the sides first evenly and then coming out forward. So it's like if it's a speed light that's hitting the beauty dish, coming back in, and then hitting it all together. So if you have just the speed light in a thing like this, obviously I don't have the bracket for it, but if you have just the speed light in here, your light is going to come out straight ahead. And sure, there's going to be some of it that hits the sides and comes out evenly, but for the most part, you're going to get a really strong hot spot right in the middle, because of the design difference between a speed light and a strobe. The timing of that. Between a speed light and a strobe. Another thing you really want to consider is, again, like the type of shooting that you do. And if you want to do anything that has to do with capturing motion and freezing motion, you're just not going to be able to do it with an LED. LEDs will limit you to your shutter speed on your camera. You might think that that's 1/8,000th of a second is real fast, but if you take your speed light and you shoot it at full power, it's probably faster than 1/10,000th of a second. And even though your shutter speed is 1/125th of a second, in order to freeze motion, it has nothing to do with speedlight. It has nothing to do with your shutter speed. It has to do with your flash duration, or your T.1 score. You can refer to the video here and when I talk about a bit more about flash duration and stuff like that. But what you want to remember is that if you're freezing motion, if you're freezing something like a water droplet that's falling down, or a dancer that's moving, you can't have it shot at 1/200th of a second. I know the big strobes here. So these big strobes. All right. So I just got a battery here. So if I turn on the strobe here, at full power, it shoots at 1/220th of a second. And if I go down to 1/256, I get 1/10,000 1/100th of a second. Your flash duration at low power on a flash like this will be quicker than even an LED at 8,000th of a second. So an option for really short flash duration is either strobes that are built specifically for it. This light definitely is not. There are some pro photo heads that are really good at capturing fast motion, and so are Broncolor. And speedlights though. Speedlights, however, are excellent at capturing motion because they have a very short flash duration. You don't need to break the bank getting a couple of these. You can get some cheap Amazon ones for like 100, 200 bucks, especially if you don't mind the reliability aspect of some of them. And you can get away with some really cool shots. I think you can get away with some cheaper lights, and you can get away with stuff that isn't necessarily the most name brand, most elite lighting equipment, because I know it's very daunting, especially if you're starting out. You're like, what, this C-stand costs 500 bucks and this modifier is another 300 bucks and I didn't even get the flash yet? Like, what is all this? But with cheaper lights, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be 1/10 as good as the other, or you'll be able to do 1/10 of the things that the one that's 10 times more expensive. It's going to be a little bit more reliable, and it's going to be able to outlast that photographer their whole career. That's why those budgets exist. But if you want to get into lighting, if you want to get into photography, get the cheapest access to it, because they all pretty much do the same thing. Some have just refined certain aspects, certain characteristics of that type of a type of shooting that they like to do. Each flash is really good at one niche thing, but they all pretty much will be good enough for you to do the majority of things. Long story short, get flashes. You don't really need continuous lights. I think they are important if you do video. Again, if that's, you know, if you're wanting to do a hybrid of photo and video, then sure, it's a no-brainer. But to do photo and to take stills seriously, you want to be able to have the flexibility, you want to be able to have the portability and the strength and the ease in different modifiers. You want to be able to understand flash photography and understand the concepts behind it more than getting an easier learning curve by getting a continuous light. Anyway, I hope you guys got something out of this one. Please let me know any questions you have down in the comments. I'd love to have a little bit more of a dialogue on something like this. I know I can't answer everything in this little video, so by all means, please let me know what you questions you might have and something that you want to learn about in the flash versus continuous role, and if there's like a type of shooting that I didn't mention or something that you shoot a lot of and you're still not too sure if you should go the flash route or the continuous route, let me know. I'll do my best to answer you guys, and yeah, I'll see you next week. Later.